Let's get into the winners and losers of NFL free agency. I'm going to start with my winners here. I've got the Patriots as a big time winner, them signing Carlton Davis, Milton Williams, and Robert Spillane. It's really going to help bolster up that defense. And we know that's a big time Mike Vrabel thing. He probably had a lot of influence in all these players coming in, of course, with him being the new head coach. A lot of people say the Steelers are losers of NFL free agency, but I actually have them being winners just in terms of their free agency activity. Now, it sucks to see them let Najee Harris go, but clearly they feel more confident in Jalen Warren and the other players in the running back room. But bringing in DK Metcalf, bringing in Darius Slay, got to respect those moves. Now, yes, they're still looking for a quarterback. They're still looking for some other pieces to be filled, but I'm not going to knock a team for bringing in two guys of those calibers. The Texans are another winner for me. They signed Derek Stingley to a record contract. They also trade for CJ Gardner-Johnson as well, so really locking up that secondary. The Broncos signing Greenlaw and Hufanga, I think, are another couple of winners here. We know that the defense over there with Zach Allen, with Nick Bonito, with Patrick Surtain being now the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. You bring in a guy like Hufanga, who, yes, has been injury prone the last couple of years, but he is one of the better safeties, one of the bigger playmakers in the league when he is healthy. And then Dre Greenlaw, we know that he can be an absolute menace on that defensive line, in that linebacking core. And I just think it's going to be great for the Broncos all the way around. I think the Raiders are winners as well, trading for Geno Smith, signing Max Crosby to that extension, bringing in Jeremy Chin as well. And the biggest reason for them being winners with Geno is because it feels like they have just a solid deliverer of the football for the talent, the minimal talent, I guess you could say, that they have on that team. We know that there's Brock Bowers. Of course, there is Max Crosby, who's always been a cornerstone. But for them to finally get an answer at quarterback, it opens up a lot more windows for them. The Chargers are winners for me as well. Signing Najee Harris, I think he was one of the most underrated free agent signings, one of the few running backs in NFL history to actually have 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, but the Steelers felt better otherwise, so the Chargers said, don't mind if we do. We'll go ahead and pick them up from you. They also get Mekhi Becton on a 2-year, $20 million deal as well. We saw what Mekhi Becton just was for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Jeff Stoutland being the offensive line coach. He provided a lot of value for Mekhi Becton. And they brought back Khalil Mack, which is always going to be a plus when you can bring back a guy like Khalil Mack, who really terrorizes NFL offenses and especially offensive lines. The Commanders are a big-time winner. They bring in Deebo Samuel, who I did say be wary of, but he's still going to be a creative weapon for Jaden Daniels and for Cliff Kingsbury. You get Laramie Tunsil, who's one of the better graded offensive linemen. Now, he can be a penalty machine. We know that. We've heard that about Laramie Tunsil, but he has been consistently top 5 for the last 3 seasons in pressure rate allowed, actually amount of pressures allowed. And when you stack it up over those 3 seasons combined, he is number 2 in pressure rate allowed. So he's going to be great for Jaden Daniels. Javon Kinlaw comes in. They pick up Will Harris from the Saints, and they re-sign Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner, 2 pivotal pieces that are great veterans on that team. The Bears absolutely made out like a bandit in free agency, getting Grady Jarrett. They rebuild that offensive line and Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney. I believe they brought in another offensive lineman that I just didn't have here on the note sheet, but we know that they did a lot for their trenches, and this draft is really going to be big for them. I think they're going to be looking to bolster that up even more. The Vikings bring in Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. Now, yes, we talked about this on the last show with Marcus when, Javon Hargrave coming off of an injury, Jonathan Allen coming off of an injury. I think one had a triceps, one had a calf injury. So we know that it sidelined them both for a good bit last season. But those guys are going to be difference makers on the defensive line. When you really look at what they have defensively and knowing that they lost to Daniil Hunter, and now they're able to kind of not subsidize, just get players in those positions to really be able to help them out in that department. They brought back Aaron Jones and Byron Murphy as well. Aaron Jones being a solid running back in this league and Byron Murphy being a good corner for them, all things considered over there in Minnesota. The Falcons signed Leonard Floyd. They also extend Jake Matthews as well. I think are both great moves. The Falcons get a good pass rusher from the Niners who comes out of a solid defensive system, because we know the Falcons have struggled for the better part of 5 years, not only sacking the quarterback, but even getting pressure, getting hits on the quarterback. And then Jake Matthews has consistently been one of their better offensive linemen throughout the years. So that extension was well worth it. I think the Seahawks are also winners as well for Actually, no, I've got a little special one there for the Seahawks. So the last winner in NFL free agency for me here is going to be the Rams. They keep Matthew Stafford. They signed Devontae Adams. They signed Poona Ford. And they also extended Alaric Jackson as well, which is nice, which is very nice to see because you want to keep that offensive line intact for Matt Stafford. Devontae Adams, I did give that like a C plus rating because you trade one older injury prone wide receiver for another getting older, potentially injury prone receiver as well. Now, Devontae Adams has been pretty healthy the last couple of seasons, but we saw how the turf toe, really gave him some hiccups a few years back. And then Poona Ford is an absolute force on the defensive line as well. So I thought it was really good for them to pick him up. You still got Braden Fisk. Obviously, you've got, Jared Verse as well, who looked very good. So the Rams are just keeping things rolling. These are my double dippers in NFL free agency, not only winners, but losers as well. I've got 4 teams here. The Cincinnati Bengals, I'll give them a win for locking up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the best wide receiver 1 and 2 duo potentially in the NFL right now. Yes, there's a Smitty and A.J. Brown out there. We know about Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, no question about that. But it's not going to be a loss when you're able to lock up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the highest paid wide receiver 1 and highest paid wide receiver 2 in NFL history. But I'm going to make them losers for the defense not getting any help in free agency, for them spending 45% of their salary cap between Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins for next year. And then for some reason, if they bring back Trey Hendrickson, they're going to be spending over half their salary cap next year just on 4 players. Now, Trey Hendrickson is 100% worth it. Don't get me wrong about that. But will they actually have the means to bring him back? The Saints, I'm going to say, are both winners and losers in NFL free agency. It's a win for getting Justin Reed in the building from the Chiefs. You bring back Isaac Yiadom from the San Francisco 49ers, who wasn't good for the Niners last year, but the season before with the Saints, he was very solid. So hopefully Brandon Staley can get him back into New Orleans shape. Devon Godchall, you heard me talk about it here on the show. I'm very excited about that signing for the Saints. Great run stopper, great tackler, gets a lot of his opportunities when he needs it. And then you bring back not Cam Ward, you bring back Cam Jordan for his 15th NFL season. He agrees to rework his deal, which is great. And then it's going to be a loss for the Saints when you sign Chase Young to that type of contract. Now, I did defend Chase Young, saying that I thought the contract was more worth it than people think because of us needing that defensive line presence. But $17 million a year, I think it's up to $57 million he can get in incentives if he performs up to this contract. I don't like it. And then the Jawan Johnson signing. I'm so tired of the Jawan Johnson experiment. I really am. The makeshift tight end, wide receiver, whatever you want to call it. We just gave Jawan Johnson all that money for what reason? That's why the Saints fall into also losers, winners and losers of NFL free agency. The Seahawks are going to be my double dipper here as well. It's a win for Landon Cooper Kupp. I think he's still a solid receiver. He says that he's healthier than ever, and he's still going to command respect from some NFL teams. Now, we saw the year in 2021 when they won the Super Bowl. I don't know if he's able to replicate that, but with Sam Darnold as his quarterback, I'm really not the Saints, nice big body receiver. And they bring in DeMarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys as well. So solid pickups talent-wise. But I think it's an L for them also because you trade Geno Smith for Sam Darnold basically, while also letting DK Metcalf walk for essentially bringing in Cooper Kupp. I think DK is a better receiver. And then you release Tyler Lockett. So now you have Cooper Kupp, you got MVS, and you got JSN, which is very solid. But I hated to see DK walk. I really did. And, for Tyler Lockett being with the team for a decade, I know that was a big shock to a lot of people in the fan base as well. And then the last double dipper for both winners and losers in NFL free agency before we get to the bona fide losers, it's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. I give them on the win side. I get them in on the win side for signing Zach Bond, for signing Saquon Barkley, to those extensions, those great deals. Both of those guys absolutely deserved it. One winning offensive player of the year, one winning going for defensive player of the year. So you have to reward that. And you get it done on back-to-back days as well. Going to be no complaints about that. And then you bring in Azeez Ojulari from the Giants, another Georgia Bulldog, Georgia, Philadelphia Bulldog, whatever you want to call it, We know how Howie Roseman treats those players. And Azeez Ojulari was very solid out of Georgia. I thought he was a good pick for the Giants, and I think he's going to raise hell on the Philadelphia Eagles next year. But the reason I also put them in the losers category as well is because of all the defensive players that left during free agency: Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, CJ Gardner Johnson. And we know it was tough for them to lose all of them. Now, they're still going to be a top 5 defense next year because Vic Fangio is still in the building. Like, there's no question about that, of what Vic Fangio is still going to be able to do. But it sucks to lose all of those players. I mean, it really does. It really sucks to lose all of those players at that time because of how much of a value they provided in the Super Bowl winning season. And then on to the losers. I only have 2 true losers here in NFL free agency. One of those is going to be the Colts for having to sign Daniel Jones to make Anthony Richardson want to compete at a high level, for it to be actually worth, what was it, the number 4 overall pick that the Colts took him at? Because we're just waiting for Anthony Richardson to still become that quarterback that he was drafted to be. We knew he was a major project. We knew he was on the Trey Lance kind of spectrum. But for him to not be able to stay healthy, to tap out of NFL games, to have to get benched, to now you're bringing in Daniel Jones for potential quarterback competition, it's going to say a lot about Anthony Richardson this year. And then the San Francisco 49ers, they lose Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, Javon Hargrave, Leonard Floyd, Charvarius Ward. Now, I know Hufanga, Greenlaw, Hargrave, and Ward all dealt with injuries last year, but outside of Hufanga, who dealt with injuries in back-to-back years, I didn't like any of these guys leaving, because if your precedent is they left because of injuries, then I don't I don't know what to tell you, because these guys are very solid when they're available, and they're available a lot of the time. Charvarius Ward had some things going on last season where he wasn't able to be super available for the team like I'm sure he wanted to be. Same with Hufanga, Greenlaw, and Hargrave as well, with some of those injuries. And then Leonard Floyd getting out of town, him being a premier pass rusher for the San Francisco 49ers. I just thought that was a big loss for them as well. So we've got our winners, losers, and our double dippers, winners and losers of NFL free agency locked in there for you. Y'all get in the chat, get in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the NFL free agency draft, winners and losers.